Welcome to a new episode of the Swedest Deal that I create together with my partners every game, poker. Today we're going to talk to an old friend of mine. His name is Eugene Katchalov. Everyone who was in poker back in 16, 17 years ago when he broke through in the poker world know who he is. He's been away for 4 years, but now he's coming back this summer to the World Series, even selling a package that will, in ways, support Ukraine, where he's from. So this is a very interesting story about his life, about poker, and as a businessman, together with Luca Pagan, of course. So I'm really looking forward to this talk. So this is another part of the Swedish Deal. I'm talking to an old friend of mine, Eugene Katchalov. Eugene, how are you?
Hi, Ricard. Good to see you after all
Yeah.
these years.
Yeah, it's been many years. I don't remember when was the first time we did something together. Maybe it was in 2005, 6, 7 or something like that. We did a lot of interviews and stories together. Where are you now?
Yeah, in many different countries. I remember we used to meet up and do interviews.
Yeah.
I'm now in Vegas actually, so back in the in my former first and second home together.
There were so many years where you just jumped from hotel to from event to event. Now you're back in living in hotels. What's going on?
Yeah, yeah. That I kind of got sick of that. Doing that for 10 years. Kind of my now wife. When we first started dating, she would say like, she lived that kind of life with me for a year or two, and then she said she felt like we're homeless, like we're just basically just always with our bags and just we don't have a home, and it's something you do feel like you need at some point. Like it's nice when you if you don't do it, you feel like, oh, that sounds like a cool lifestyle, but like anything, if you do too much of something, um, it's not necessarily good. So it was nice to kind of settle down and have an actual home.
Okay, so if we go back a little bit, because I started in poker in 2005, worked with Poker Magazine. You remember you were on the cover of one of those, and also worked with Poker Tube and a bit of Poker News and so on. You started playing around just before I got into poker, didn't you?
Yeah, I started playing probably in 2003, and I probably started like actually traveling to play around probably the same time, 2005, when you started. I think that was my first trip that I made to Vegas. Was in 2005.
Where were you living when you started playing poker?
That was in New York. I lived in New York.
I think I remember you told me you moved there with your mom or something. How old were
Yeah,
you when you moved there?
I was 10 years old when I moved from Ukraine, which at the time was still the Soviet Union. It wasn't even Ukraine yet. 10 years old, I moved there.
Like in 91 or something?
91, exactly. Yeah, summer of 91. It was right. It was literally the day the Soviet Union fell apart.
Hmm. So when the Soviet Union fell apart, you decided to move out, or your mom decided for you to
No,
move
the
out.
decision was made way before that. That was just coincidence that our tickets for the flight were the same day that the Soviet Union was falling apart.
Hmm. And after that, you were an American.
Yeah, I grew up in the States. It took a while to get used to it, and I went to school. English became my first language. I went to university. And I started playing poker and kind of trading also at the same time, and that's when I kind of fell in love with poker, and that's when it all kicked off.
What was it? Was America attractive for? Did mom work there, or was it just for a better lifestyle, or why did she decide to bring you to
Yeah,
there?
it was my dad and my mom. They both hated communism. They both hated the Soviet Union. Especially my dad. He always dreamed about moving to America, moving away from communism. So basically, the first opportunity that we had, we moved. He moved like a year before us, and then me and my mom came to join him. Yeah, so that was the number one reason.
Yeah, I remember my mom moved into a city when I was young, and I always thanked her for it. I was 14 then, living in a smaller city and moving into a bigger one. I always thanked her for it. Is it something that you thank your parents for, that they brought you there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thankful to my parent. I'm thankful to my parents for a lot of things. I think I was very fortunate with having great parents who I feel like raised me well. They loved me, and so especially from some of the stuff that I hear about other people and the problems they had with their parents, I certainly never encountered that. So I'm thankful for that, but amongst many other things.
Mm. What made it? I mean, were you into other games when you were younger that led you into playing poker?
Yeah, I was always into games. I always loved to compete. I was into video games all my life.
What
I
kind
was
of?
actually
Tell me
like,
what games when you were young.
the earliest that I remember that I was really obsessed with was Warcraft 2, which,
Wow.
as we mentioned before we started the stream, we're both fans of StarCraft 2. I was a really big fan of Warcraft 2. I used to play a lot. I used to play on a pretty high level at the time, but there was no competition like there is today. The connection was bad, and we used to play on something called Kali and Khan because there was no BattleNet back then. But yeah, that was a game that I just spent all my after school time playing and competing. So that game, and then I remember I used to play like a game called Ultima Online. Um, those were like probably the two most memorable games that I spent most of my time on.
I've been trying to explain because I still like it. I like to watch it, as I said before, the StarCraft 2 when they play these days. And I was trying to figure out what caught my attention so much. Because I've been a numeric guy, I like mathematics and so on. And it's something magic about these games, the Warcraft, the StarCraft, when it came along. It was just mind-boggling and so cool that it was hard to stay away from, right?
Yeah, I think when you know the rules, when you have a little bit of experience yourself, you appreciate just how much skill goes into competing in those games, how technically difficult it is to play well, and I'm just like you. I don't play games anymore, but I really enjoy watching games. I really enjoy watching StarCraft 2 competitions. Like the reason I don't play, I mean, personally, because I think I would just get frustrated with how bad I am, and it would just take so much time for me um, to play in a kind of reasonable level. But because I can appreciate the skill level, I do really like watching. So like I really get a kick out of watching, and I'm really thankful for having gone into esports 4 or 5 years ago with Luca, and founding Clash. We had, as you know him, we had Rainer on our team, and he was the number one player in the world for a while, and that was a real treat watching him play in real life. Going to competitions and standing behind him. I mean, these guys are doing like 400 or 500 actions per minute. Like, I mean, can you imagine like doing 10 actions per second? Like it's just mind-boggling how fast they think, and how fast they execute, and how many things they can do at the same time, all over the map. So that's really, really cool.
Weren't you one of your best friends on the tour? Uh, I say Bertrand Grospellier, but of course Elki.
Elkie, yeah. Yeah. Elkie is actually probably someone who first introduced me to competitive gaming, to esports, I would say in general. Actually, this was in 2012, I believe, was the first year I went to South Korea, with Elkie, and and he took me to my first esports event. He took me to a StarCraft One Brood War event, and that was amazing. I mean, just watching it was like 5,000 people in the stadium, everyone going insane, just so much
With
energy.
all the signs with names
Yeah,
on it. With
I was like, wow. I mean, and it's like a national sport, in Korea, and so that really opened up my mind, and I think that's kind of what kept my interest up. Even while I was still playing poker professionally, I was kind of starting to get into esports at that time already.
yeah, I mean we're jumping way ahead, but I remember one of my last years out touring, doing interviews and so on. You talked about starting this with Luca Pagano, the Italian former PokerStars pro, and you started this. It's spelled Q Lash, right? Clash.
Clash, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's our brand, yeah. Clash.
and I guess you're doing quite well, aren't you?
Yeah, we've been growing pretty well. We're definitely number one esports organization in Italy. We're in the top five in Spain, and we've now expanded to Mexico, and expanding to the Middle East, to MENA, to Middle Eastern region. Esports just has so much potential, and we have our own kind of unique approach to it. We've partnered with AC Milan, actually.
Yeah,
Also,
I
we act
saw
as
that.
their esports arm. So lots of cool things going on, and we see a huge opportunity with it. We're taking a really kind of long-term approach to it. We invested a ton of our personal money, and then also did like fundraising with different investors. And yeah, we have some really famous investors on board as well, which is kind of cool, especially from the competitive world. Like, well, just from poker world, we have Daniel Negreanu, Phil Hellmuth, Jungleman, Dan Cates, Jeff Gross. That's just from poker world. Then we also have Marvin Vittori. He's like the Italian UFC
Yeah, I know.
champion. We have Victor Camarasa. He's like a famous footballer, and we're about to get on board two more footballers actually. So I think it's nice to have people who appreciate competition in all its aspects,
Of
not just
course.
but also poker, also sports. These people can bring their own kind of unique perspective on what competition means, and what it means to have fans, and what marketing means, around this. So we're kind of, really kind of proud of that.
Can you in short explain the business idea to tell me why it's a lucrative thing?
Sure. So we actually see an opportunity in creating events in esports, events both live and online. So what we're focusing on today is building a platform, an online app essentially, where anybody who likes, competing in different games and different esports can join and compete. But our approach to it is kind of like the PokerStars approach, kind of like what PokerStars did with us, right? Because that's the experience that we're coming from, where we were professional players, right? Me and Luca were professional players, and PokerStars used us as marketing tools, essentially, to drive, to engage with the poker community, both in real life and online. So for the same reason, we also have competitive players who are under contract with us, and their job is not just to play and compete under our brand, but to also engage with our community of players, play in our events. So kind of like a similar approach as what poker did, we're trying to do in esports.
I understand, yeah, because that was such a boom, and there's still, even if the gaming outside poker, just the esports gaming has boomed, it keeps booming, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's been growing for a long time, and and it just keeps going and going and going. Yeah, I mean, now it's esports is now bigger than any one sport. I mean, some of the games are getting absolutely massive, and and even I looked at some statistics, and you could see that I've seen like statistics of age groups that watch different sports, and all the age groups are rising in sports, and I think that's a sign that young kids are not watching sports to the same degree as older people, and I think that's because they're all watching esports. So I do think in the next 5-10 years we'll see esports become bigger than all the sports combined, and it's not to say that I think sports will die off. I just think that they're going to kind of combine in some way, kind of like what we're trying to do with AC Milan, and you see lots of different sports teams now trying to get into esports and trying to get that young community on board.
Yeah, we have a pretty famous Swede in that AC Milan team. Ibrahimovic celebrated as a 40-year-old the title the other day.
Mm.
What an amazing career he had, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
that's cool. I know he likes to play games of FIFA and so on too. Yeah, he's a cool guy. Anyway, what made it? I mean, what year was it that was it 2007 or something that you had your really big year where you won a lot
Yeah,
and became
that,
a lot of
that my
titles?
breakthrough in poker, like a major breakthrough in poker, was 2007. Yeah, when I won the Bellagio Cup,
Yeah,
the
was that the Doyle Bronson thing or
Doyle
something?
Brunson, yeah, for 2.5 million. And then 2011 was when I was Player of the Year. That was like also a huge year for me.
A Player of the Year in the World Series or
No,
European
just card player, Player
card
of the
player
Year,
rankings?
or Bluff. Maybe it was Bluff. That was Bluff Magazine
It was
Player of the
bluff.
Year.
It was bluff. Bluff.
Yeah.
Mm. They
But yeah,
had
I just
that
had a
title.
massive year. I won a bracelet. I made like a bunch of final tables everywhere, and yeah, it was just a massive, massive year for me.
And I mean, was it? When did you feel like when it started to become old to just travel from tournament to tournament, being in Bahamas, being in Prague, being in Vegas?
Um, I think it's probably when I met my wife, in 2014. Also, when I started to think to myself, where do I was, I'm 41 now, and I was starting to think to myself, where do I want to be when I'm 50, when I'm 60? What do I want to do with my life? Do I want, and do I want to be a professional poker player? And I did not. I love poker, but I think my dream was to become a recreational poker player,
Right.
not to continue being a professional poker player. So, and I always dreamed about starting a company and building something that I can kind of be like really be proud of. And when this opportunity arose with Luca, I just couldn't pass it up. Like I just have an incredible amount of respect for him. I mean, he's just a workhorse and has skills that I could never have. But I think we make a good team in that sense. So we both love the esports. We got into it. And my dream has always been, maybe we can do that for 10, 15 years, and then maybe sell the company for a bunch of money, and then I can go and play poker just recreationally, just for fun, and not worry about like studying all the time, or trying to win, or relying on winning, to make a living. So that's kind of my dream. That's kind of that's what it has been. And obviously following my passion for gaming in general and esports in general.
Right, right. Where's your wife from?
She's from Ukraine.
And so how
Um,
did you meet her after, because I know you pretty much went back to Ukraine and Kiev, didn't you? To see relatives, or what did you do?
yeah, because when I signed with PokerStars in 2011, I was part of Team Ukraine. I was their main ambassador, and part of my contract was to go and spend quite a bit of time in Ukraine. So as I started traveling more and more, I really kind of fell in love with the country, and I still never imagined myself living there, but I really like going back. And at some point, I met my wife. That's another interesting story, but it's kind of connected to the Ukrainian version of The Bachelor, where I was supposed to be the
Yeah,
Bachelor. She won the Bachelor, and yeah, it's kind of a long story,
I
but
remember that. Now when you say that, you were that, right? Were you?
I wasn't. I was supposed to be in it. I was in a different show. I was in a different reality show in Ukraine.
Okay.
Um, but my wife, ended up winning the Bachelor. Then we were introduced, and we started dating, and and then we kind of just like traveled and fell in love, and have been together ever since. But my wife started a brand, also a clothing brand, her own business in Ukraine. That was really really successful. And when we were thinking about where to settle down, just everything kind of pointed at Kiev, in Ukraine. So that's where we have been living for the last maybe 5, 6 years. Well, up until recent events, but yeah, that's kind of where we still have our place, and 95% of our belongings.
Yeah, I see. I mean, just talking about the Ukraine situation, and for you, I know you've been posting a lot and been very active with that, which is fascinating and cool in a way for you to put it in. But as I know you, I wasn't surprised to see that. I mean, in short, what happened to you personally when it came to the Russian invasion?
Yeah, I mean, personally, we were in Kiev. I mean, obviously there was a lot of tension building up, but I think at the time, no one really thought that it was actually going to happen, at least to the degree that it actually happened. So we just kind of, always doubted it. But at the same time, nevertheless, I think a month in advance, we decided just to be ready, just in case, to kind of have our bags ready, at least to have most of our most important paperwork ready, just in case we actually do have to make our escape. So yeah, so we kind of, we had that ready, and um, I mean, we were still kind of surprised, obviously, but yeah, I mean, I've spoken about that moment a lot. I mean, basically, the morning of February 24th, we woke up, we heard a huge explosion in the distance, and then my wife started getting phone calls, and around 5 a.m. we realized that, we saw that tanks were crossing the border. So we quickly got up, just made some coffee, started gathering our things. The plan was to just meet up with some friends just outside the city, just outside of Kiev, like 30 kilometers outside of Kiev, and in the countryside. At the time, we thought that would be kind of the safest place to be, and then just kind of regroup and figure out what to do from there. So we just packed a few things. I mean, literally, I just packed like a few, some sports clothing, and just took our paperwork. My wife stopped by her office, picked up some cash, and that's it. And then we just went, and it was already, it was nerve-wracking. You could see a lot of the city was much more alive at 6:30 in the morning than it normally is. I mean, Kiev is like a city of 5 million people. It's a huge metropolitan city, and you could see people are kind of already rushing around with suitcases, and no one really knew what was going on. And we were just able to beat the massive traffic that started. Yeah, and then we made it a couple hours later. We made it to our friend's parents' home in the countryside. We spent the day there. Originally the plan was maybe to spend a couple of days there and figure out what to do afterwards. But I think as the day went on, it kind of became clear that we probably have to make it to the border. It would be the safest choice. Just there's a lot of things that balance. Like there was no gas at gas stations, so we weren't sure if we were going to actually even make it. It was like 700 kilometers, 700 kilometers to the nearest border. So certainly, even though we had a full gas tank, it wasn't enough. So we just weren't sure. And then traffic was piling up, and roads were being bombed. So yeah, there was a lot of risks in both staying and going. But at some point, we decided that we need to go, and that's when I actually decided. I wasn't actively using my Twitter all that much, but I thought, considering what I'm feeling inside, I thought maybe the best thing that I can do is to actually show the outside world what I'm personally going through, at least from my perspective, so that they can actually see. Maybe that's the best I can do for Ukraine at the time, right? To actually share in my personal experience. So that's when I kind of started tweeting about it. And honestly, I was just like shocked. It was just amazing how much support I started to receive. Like it seemed like the whole poker world just like got behind me and started sending me messages of support and really just kind of rooting for me. And I honestly, like, I felt all this energy like of support towards me, and that gave me the energy to kind of to continue sharing my personal experience, kind of like the fear that I was going through, the kind of like animal, the survival kind of animal instinct, and all these things, right, that my body was going through. So that went on for the next couple, I think it took us 2 days to actually cross the border. And then as soon as we crossed, immediately, like literally, like me, my wife, and her two friends, as soon as we kind of breathed a sigh of relief, we're like, all right, now, what can we do to help others? What can we do to help our refugees? And that literally just like right away became our core focus. And we planted ourselves in Budapest for the next 10 days. And considering how much publicity I was receiving, a lot, and my wife as well, she was receiving a lot of messages, people requesting help, and I was receiving a lot of messages from all over Europe of people offering to help. I counted up, I received messages from 16 different countries of people offering their homes for free to refugees. So that's kind of what we spent our first 10 days on, was just kind of connecting people with other people who are willing to help, while there was still no setup. And then, once that kind of set up, there was not that much need for that anymore. But then we started focusing more on fundraising, and that's kind of what I've been doing, together with Clash. And on personal level, we've already raised over $200,000, which is pretty amazing. And yeah, and that's kind of where I am today. I thought, number one, I missed playing poker, and I thought it could be a good opportunity to also try and raise some money for a cause that's really important for me. So I decided to make a trip out of it. Also, my poker sponsor, which I've been sponsored by a company called Poker Match in Ukraine, that's the number one online poker operator in Ukraine, and they wanted to support me in this. So they said that they're going to invest a good amount of money, and 5 figures into me playing, and they're going to donate their whole piece to charity, to Ukrainian charity. And I said that I created a package out of it on Pocket Fives. I've been working with Josh Aria. He's been really kind of helpful with it, and I said that I'm going to also donate 10% of my personal winnings, and I created a package, and hopefully people see that as a way to support a cause that's important for me and also for a lot of people, but also have a sweat at this World Series. together with me. So that's kind of where I'm at today. And
Wow.
you may remember I really like mixed games.
Yeah,
So
so do I. We talked a lot about it back in the day when almost no one did, except for in Doyle's room.
exactly.
I mean, I was
Yeah.
into that so early, and it was so thrilling. I thought, and you still do. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you're
I
still
still do.
interested,
And the World Series is the best place to play it, right?
of
Like, there's no
course.
tournament like the World Series, so that's kind of where I want to focus on. Also, I mean, obviously, like I have while I've played some poker over the last 5 years, certainly not enough to where I can consider my no limit game to to be up to par to some of the high limit players. I still think I'm certainly like plus EV in the smaller events for sure. But I'm not planning to play any high rollers. I don't think I'd be a favorite without putting in a significant amount of work. But the great thing about limit games is that there's no, I don't think those have changed all that much because they're not as popular. Number one, and there just isn't the amount of tools to help people excel in those, as like in No Limit or PLO. So in
Yeah,
that sense, my edge is still good in those games.
and there will always be some players, a higher percentage of players coming in there not knowing that much on what they're doing. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Like, it always has been, right? Like people just wanting to fire
Yeah.
and $1,500 or $2,000 and just have fun in the World
Mm.
Series.
You see a guy race with the king and Ras, and you go, "Okay, nice to meet you, sir."
Hello, that's why I'm here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly,
Oh, that's
exactly.
nice. I mean, have you? Yeah, so that's interesting. And how many events do you plan to play?
So I've counted it. It's around 22, 23. But
Wow.
again, this is going to be flexible, right? Like it's going to depend on.
Depending on how you go
I would say
doing.
that's the maximum. Yeah, I would say that's the maximum amount of events I'll play. It'll likely be maybe a bit less. Realistically maybe closer to 20, but we'll
And
see.
the
I
last one
also
is
have to.
probably the main event, I guess.
Well, yeah, actually, there's actually a few events after the main event now.
Right.
It's not like
Okay.
before. Main event was always the last event. There's actually like a few of the events are after the main. Certainly the main is the most exciting.
Hmm.
Uh, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I played it once only. I played in 2015, I think, because I always worked, so I didn't have the chance. But I
yeah,
played it
yeah,
once, and it's of course the best tournament there is.
yeah. But it's good that you got a chance to at least play it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And this year it's at the new venue. The first year at the new venue,
yeah,
it's at Bally's and Paris.
yeah.
So that's kind of
Do you
exciting.
think it's good, or I talked to Negrano about it? I mean, is it good or bad? He was a bit sad that he couldn't bring his RV.
Yeah, for Daniel, it's a tricky situation, right? Because he used to have his RV, and he just feels like at home, right? So it's perfect. And I guess he can't really do that on the strip. For me personally, it's great because I'm staying on the strip, and I don't need to like. I hated the idea that I had to always drive there and look for parking. It was just like driving me nuts. Now I can just walk there, so it's like perfect. I don't need to. I also like walking, so it's an excuse for me to walk. And it's just nearby. I'm
Yeah.
staying at the AM Signature, and it's only a 15-minute walk. Uh, so in that sense, I'm excited. I haven't seen it yet. I think me and Elke were actually discussing. I think tomorrow we'll go and check it out, see what it's like, the setup and stuff. But I'm
Yeah,
excited.
I remember walking to. We stayed in Vidara, and I decided to walk one day to the Rio
That's
with
tough.
with my gear, my computer. Oh my God, it's so long. It's so
You
long.
can't do that. You can't do that in the middle of summer when it's like plus 40 outside. You
No,
just
it's
can't.
horrible. But I think it's a good thing for overall people coming to Vegas, haven't been there much, and can walk around instead of being isolated there at the Rio. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. And I also, and I think I'm pretty optimistic about, a lot of people think it might break records this year. So
Hopefully.
we'll see. I think, now there's no more COVID restrictions, and I think everyone just missed poker, and a new place is going to get everyone excited. So we'll
Mm.
see.
I mean, now that you have quite a few people, because I saw a lot of big names was promoting your package and welcoming you back and all that, Helmuth and Negrano and everyone. Are you gonna report in a way about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely, the plan is definitely to keep everyone up to date, like on a daily basis about how the game is going, what my thought process is about my game, about what I plan to play. Yeah, I mean, the plan for now is to definitely be very active on Twitter, and especially because it's my first time selling a package to the public. I think it's particularly important for people to have who have a piece to know in real time, what's going on with me. Because I think, like when you bet on a sport, just like when you're betting on a player, it's not enough to just like see whether they won or lost. Like half the fun is actually following
Of
them along and
course.
rooting for
Yeah.
them. So
Uh,
I appreciate that, and I think it's really important, and so I definitely want to give that to the fans.
that sounds great. Will there be a limit to? So on Pocket Fives, you go to Pocket Fives and you find it there. You find your
Yeah,
way into to
yeah,
where I can buy a piece of you. Is it
yeah,
still pieces are up or
yeah,
are you
yeah,
sold out?
yeah. It went no, it's not sold out. It went up yesterday, so definitely available.
That sounds
So
good. I'm gonna go in and check how much I can buy, and there's different price ranges where I can buy a
no, it's
small.
it's based. Well, oh yeah, you can buy as little as like 0.01% because it's like a full package. So yeah, I think it's like the least you can put in like even $20 if you want. So it's very flexible in that sense. But yeah, I'm basically selling for the whole package, and I think throughout the series I may also sell additionally towards specific events. We'll see how that goes. So
Uh,
that'll be up.
I mean, it's quite a few years. I checked your hand on mob, which we were always on hand on mob before, checking
Yeah.
everyone and the results and everything. And I mean, your list is sick long. 2018 is the last time. What will be the biggest challenges for you to? Is it condition and strength to stay in there, stay focused? Do you think?
Yeah, maybe maybe it's like more the unknown factors because before when I used to play, obviously like I would play year round, so I knew what to expect. So that's a positive and a negative. I always knew that I was always looking forward to the World Series, but then like after a couple of weeks, I was always just get tired already
Mm.
and just become a grind. But I think now because I haven't been playing quite as actively, I'm really kind of excited. So I suspect I'll have much more energy for it because and additionally because I'm playing, partially for an important cause. That's for Ukraine, and partially because I'll have all these backers that I'd like to make happy.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Of course, of course.
we'll see.
I saw that you found the best way to support Ukraine was something about King Badwin. Something. Do you want to tell me about that?
Yeah, yeah, the King Bedouin Foundation. I was looking for together with a close friend of mine. He was helping to find a good charity to support. I didn't really know much about it. I know the problem with a lot of like charities is that like some of them have really high fees that they take, and you don't really know how much money at the end actually goes to the people in need. But when we spoke with the King Bedouin Foundation, we spoke with their director, and he just seemed very transparent, very open. He said like only 5% goes towards administrative fees, and 95% goes towards three carefully picked NGOs. One is like the Polish Red Cross, one is People in Need, which is a Czech organization, and another one is Carnitas, which is a Ukrainian organization. So these are all like 20-year plus organizations with a long history of helping people, and we just have to trust that King Bedouin did their vetting properly, which I have no reason to doubt. So that's kind of how we decided to support it. And it's honestly, it's gone incredibly well. We've raised a lot of money for it, and hopefully we can keep that going.
So I mean, now World Series is in focus. What are your hopes outside the gaming world for Ukraine? What should happen for you to be for your
Uh,
dreams to come true? It's not a small question, Eugene, but you know what
yeah,
I mean. You know what I mean.
yeah. Well, obviously, I'm hoping for an end to the conflict in some way, but to be realistic, I don't see that happening anytime soon, unfortunately. And I think that the thing that I'm most sad about, besides all the obvious tragedy that's happening on the ground in Ukraine, is also how this will kind of, I don't know if permanently, but permanently kind of damage any kind of relationships that Ukrainian normal people in Ukraine and Russia have had, because I think everyone I know has family in Russia, and kind of vice versa, and that what's happened now has really strained those relationships, and um I think that is not something that's going to heal anytime soon. So Right now, I remain highly optimistic. I think Ukraine will win in the end. The problem is at what cost. The problem is at how much blood have to be shed for them to win. So on a low level, like a lower level, it's really kind of sad what's happening because so many people are being killed and just whatever. The most horrific things are happening. Um, and when I zoom out and think about it on a high level, it's just you just got the world is changing quickly. Everything is shifting. I think the world that we lived in last year is not coming back. I think together with what COVID did and now this war that no one expected to happen, in Europe, such a massive like war. I think it's going to shift geopolitics and shift the way the world is. So it's quite amazing to view that in real time. But uh, obviously, I love Ukraine, and I'm going to do everything I can to support both the people there and the refugees who there's now over 6 million people who are without homes.
I mean, if I know you right from those years back then, Eugene, I know you will do a good deeds and do what you can, and hopefully things will turn out for the best eventually. It might take time, though.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
Ricard. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It
so I
was.
also think it's coming best, but
What was that?
sorry. No, I said I'm also optimistic that it will turn out well. It's just as I said, like the biggest concern is how much more blood will have to be shed before that.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's important in sad times and tough times for people to have something else to focus on.
Yes.
Otherwise, we would just sit there and cry all the time, and we can't do that.
Yeah, and
So,
I actually that's a great point because that's something I even tell my wife and my family. I was like, you sitting there and crying like it doesn't do any good. The only thing you're doing is you're hurting yourself essentially.
and,
You don't
and
do
and and actually, others around you that care for you, if they see you
exactly.
sad, they become sad. So,
Yeah.
you know.
So that's why, yeah, I completely agree with you, and that's why I think, we should all kind of instead of just sitting and feeling sad, we should actually try to do something about it and actually try to bring some change to this, some impact on this. I
and
think that's
hope
much more valuable.
and hopefully your coming eventual success there in Vegas might bring some joy to people's minds somewhere for the Ukrainian. Oh, that's our
I
guy.
hope
That's
so.
our
Yeah.
hero. Wouldn't that be
Yeah,
beautiful?
I sure hope I don't go, 0 for 22. I mean, I'm ready for it. I have to be ready for it, but I sure hope not. So we'll see. But if I am, then
I was a bit upset with Ukraine after Sweden lost to Ukraine in the football championship last summer. But now I kind of we have the same kind of flag, blue and yellow. So
yeah.
Ukraine is my friend too, of course. Okay, but
Thanks, Rico.
I mean, Eugene, hopefully later on this summer, if you have any success, maybe we can do something similar or a roundup after the World Series or something, and I'll be following for sure.
Thanks,
And
Ricard.
yeah, looking forward to see how it goes and to talk to you again soon, Eugene.
As do I. Good to see
Okay,
you.
take care now. Thanks for listening to this part of the Swedest Deal that I do together with Every Game Poker. Super nice to talk to Eugene Katchalov again, one of the greatest guys I met in poker throughout the years. So it was really fun, and I'm really glad that you listened. See you soon.